So last time we left off at giving some functionality to this play button. So when you click the play button, the UI would go away. Now we need to basically do the same thing with the exit button, except with the exit button, when you click on it, we will want to kick out the player. So similar to the play button, we need to add a local script under it. So if you go over to the text button, which we didn't rename, by the way. So let's go ahead and go under the properties. Make sure that text button is selected. Go under to the properties window and go to where it says name and just change that to exit button. And this is just so we know what this button is for. So in terms of functionality, it won't do much, but this is just for good reference for us. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a local script. So we'll click on local script, and now a local script is placed under the exit button. So local script is the child of exit button. So in order to grab this, we're going to say local button equals script.parent, because remember, script refers to the local script. The parent is what this local script is under, and it's under the exit button. So now button is the exit button, and if you want to, you can even change this just so you can be more descriptive. So you can say exit button. The next thing we need to do is we need to get the player information. So we're gonna say local. Let me add a space just so it looks nicer. We're gonna say local players equals game get service. So I'm gonna do a colon, and I'm gonna use one of their methods, get service, and I'm gonna say players in quotation marks. Next, I want to basically write the event function. So what happens when we click the exit button? So I'm gonna say exit button dot activated, and we're gonna connect a function which we're just gonna declare directly in here, and we're going to say local player equals players dot local player, and I'll show you why that is the case. And we're gonna say local player, and we're gonna do a colon and say kick. So here's what it does. It says, okay, so whenever this exit button is activated, connect this function which grabs the local player, and then we're gonna kick that local player out of the game. So basically it's gonna exit out of the game. And in these parentheses, it's optional. You can put a message that says you clicked the button, so I'm kicking you out, or just any message. And let's try to run that and see what happens. Play, and if I click the exit button, you were kicked from this experience. So here's our message that we put in those parentheses earlier. You clicked the button, so I'm kicking you out. So that's what the message is for there. And we're gonna go ahead and go back to our script. Now, let me show you why we get local player. Okay, so take note of this, game colon get service players. Take note of that right now. What that line of code does is it goes and it grabs this. This is the player service right there. And then when we say players dot local player, that's when it goes down and it says players dot local player. So now the local player is me, that Jovada blocks. And then it says local player, which is Jovada blocks, kick. So that's why it kicks me out of the game. And that's how it works there. So let me show you another thing you could do. If you don't like putting this function inside directly, what you can do is you can create a variable and say local kick player. So this is just whatever name you can come up with. It's up to you. So that's my variable name, and I'm going to set it equal to a function. And here I'm going to put, basically I'm going to copy the contents of this in here. So I'm going to copy local player variable, and I'm going to copy that kick function. And then basically that's our function now. So what we can do is we're left with this. We're left with that connect method, right? So now instead of putting that whole function in, you can just put the variable name of our function, which is kick player. So this kick player is the name of this variable, which references this function. So I guess if you want, you can do it this way, or you can do it the other way. It's really up to you. And we're going to see if that works. And we're going to exit. And it works. We are getting kicked out. Okay, let's revisit the play button. So remember how... Well, let's open it first. Okay, so here's our play button script. Remember how I told you that there's another way to reference the ScreenGui without saying script.parent.parent.parent. Well, yeah, let's do that now. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this part right here. Or actually, let's change the whole thing. We're going to say local. And what we want to do is we want to grab the players. So we want to grab this over here on the right. And in order to do that, we have to say equals game.getService, just like the exit button script. And we're going to say players in quotation marks. So that gets the player service. And now we want to get the local players. So if you remember how to do that, we're going to say local player equals to players dot local player. And if you just type dot, you can see that local player is a member of that object. So go ahead and just say local player. And next, we want to get the player GUI, and I'll show you why we get that. And we're going to say local player GUI. So I'm creating a new variable, and I'm going to say local player. And I'm going to say find first child. Find first child that is called player GUI. And after that, I'm finally going to say the screen GUI equals to player GUI. Find first child. And I'm going to say screen GUI. Now note, this is like a more formal way to do it. But basically, this find first child is kind of like saying player GUI dot screen GUI. So it's just locating the child of player GUI that's called screen GUI. But I'm going with the find first child method because that's the more efficient way. And now that we have our screen GUI button, we can keep this as is, and let's see what happens when we try to run it. If we click the play button, it goes away and it works. So yes, there are more steps for this approach, but it's good practice just so you can get familiar with how you access a lot of these objects and its members. And yeah, it will look a bit cleaner than saying just like script, you know, script.parent.parent.parent. It looks cleaner, but you know, if it works for you, it works for you. But yeah, that is it, and congrats, you now know how to make a menu GUI, a fully functioning one that plays and exits. Now just for one last run, we're going to try the exit button, and we're going to try the play button, and they both work. Now actually I forgot to mention this, because I did tell you I was going to say why we reference player GUI. Well, let's click on the play button one more time and I'll show you. If you expand on the players right here on the right hand side, and if you expand down on the local player, which is Jovada blocks in my case, you're going to see the player GUI. And if you expand player GUI, you're going to see ScreenGui. And then under that, you're going to see our frame and all of our contents that were in that frame. Now you're probably asking, well, why is it under player GUI? I thought we put it under starter GUI. Well, you did. If you expand starter GUI, it's all there. But the way it works is whenever a player spawns, all the contents under starter GUI get placed into this player GUI under the local player. So if you try to reference the starter GUI in here, let me stop this. If I try to reference the starter GUI by saying starter GUI, starter GUI, and I click play. Oops, let me go back. I need to change this to starter GUI too. Now, if I click play, nothing's gonna happen. That's because it's looking for something under here, or it's looking at a starter GUI that's non-existent. It's looking under players, but it's not finding anything that says starter GUI, right? It's not looking at this. This is just this under whatever's under the starter GUI just gets copied over to players, and what's under players is what's getting used, or the player GUI folder. So yeah, that's how it works, and that's the reason why you reference player GUI instead of starter GUI. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please give a like and a comment, or leave any feedback, and I will try to address it. Thank you for watching.